Welcome to the Landscape Photography Vlogcast, hosted by myself, Tom Peters, aka the Photo Ninja, all the way up north, Paul Thompson Photography, and Struth mate, it's Matt Bishop. We cover all things photography and chat to some of the best photography minds in the business. Put your feet up, the kettle on, and let's jump straight into this week's Vlogcast. Right, welcome to the podcast, everyone. And this week we're talking with Matt Jackisch. How you doing, mate? All right?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Yeah, well done on the name. You pronounced it perfectly.
Did I? Oh, I thought I did. Yeah, I was a bit worried about it. I was a bit worried about it. I thought. So how's things been with you and over there? And you were living in Canada, yeah?
Yeah, I'm here in Vancouver. With regards to COVID, I think we're sort of on the upswing now. I think things are, looking a little rosier. We just, passed our third wave and, things were looking pretty negative there for a while. So you kind of get this sort of general mood of the society and things were pretty down for a few weeks and I think we're getting out of that. So there's light at the end of the tunnel, I hope. We'll see. I don't know if I'll be getting on a plane anytime soon, like you guys, but we'll see about it.
Yeah. Oh, ideal. So for people who maybe don't know you, I don't know why that would be, but do you want to give us like a brief overview of you as a photographer and where it all began, really? I know it's a bit of a broad question.
Oh, big golly.
Go back to the beginning, mate. Right back to the beginning. When you picked up a camera.
When I left the womb. I guess I started traveling and sort of adventuring a little bit before I really got into photography. I always had a camera with me. I started backpacking back in 2010. I did a solo trip sort of around Asia and Costa Rica. And, just with the camera, just with a little point and shoot, I just realized, I never felt like lonely or out of sorts. I was just always going after this shot or that shot. So I just realized I had a passion for it. And it just slowly sort of, grew from there. And it was just sort of one year to the next. It just got more, I just sort of kept going deeper into this rabbit hole of photography. And as you know, it just doesn't end. It's just, there's always more to learn. There's more to see. There's more to explore. There's more people to learn from and there's more people to be inspired from. And it's been quite a journey. So yeah, I don't know if that's really a good answer to your question. I'm still working. I'm technically an amateur, I guess you could say. I just sort of do it when I have time. I do have a lot of time. So, it's become a bit of an obsession. It's probably not very healthy, but, I just love it. I just love it. And I'm going to keep going with it.
Why do you say it's not healthy?
Well, it's become something that I almost have to do, right? Like I feel almost out of sorts when I'm not doing it. It's just calling to me and I'm living life from one composition to the next, it feels like. So, when I haven't done it for a week or two, I get this angsty feeling like I'm wasting my time and, you always question about, the path, about whether, this is really the right thing to be doing, whether, I'm really contributing anything. You go through those questions about, what value does this have? I mean, I'm not really generating much of an income from this. So it's just sort of for my own jollies, my own curiosity. And you get all these sort of signals that make you question whether this is really, practical, but does it need to be, I guess, Yeah,
as long as you're getting something out of it, it doesn't really matter, does it? I think that's the key to it.
Well, yeah, and I am. I mean, I just love it. There's just so much that I still want to contribute to this thing, that I still want to explore and see and try and make, and it's a passion. And so, and I'm sure it's the same with you guys. It's just sort of something that keeps you going, that keeps you keeps that sense of wonder alive, and just keeps you sort of engaged,
Yeah, for sure.
So when did you realize that maybe you could there was something here to build off? When did you realize that you was starting to take some really, really decent images? Was there a point when you thought maybe there was legs in this, in what you was doing?
There were always these little micro catalysts that sort of told me, like, oh, wait a minute, like maybe there is something to this. I remember signing up for Max Rive's tour in Greenland. Mm-hmm. And, I showed up a day early, so I showed up for the other participants when I met up with Max. And to my surprise, he already knew who I was. He was familiar with my work. And I'm like, oh, okay. This is Max Rive. Like, this guy's a big deal. Why would he know about me? And why would he be, familiar with my work? So
he does his research, mate. He does his research. Max
He's very well researched. He's watching. So he is. I was quite flattered by that. And that's when I realized, oh, maybe I am putting out, some quality stuff, and stuff that people are noticing and maybe having an impact. So, that was one thing that sort of stands out in my mind because it's really hard to gauge, right? Like, you get these sort of mixed signals on social media, and I mean, I get a really inconsistent response. So it's really tough to gauge whether, your work is impactful, I guess, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. I have to see where I'm constantly second guessing whether my work's good enough. You never know. Yeah. That's why I plague Matt and Tom with, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? What do you think I should do with it? It's just sort of an insecurity. You just don't know, do you? It's hard to know.
But you're always going to have that insecurity, aren't you?
Yeah, I think so.
I do too. I used to actually also get people to critique my work before sharing. But then I realized, the more outside influence I have on my work, the less it's maybe me. And, just throw it out there with the flaws and with whatever I was feeling that day. And it's almost a little more raw that way, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was just going to say, how do you, obviously you live where you live is full of amazing landscapes, and you've got woodlands, and what do you strive for? What's your go-to location or subject?
That's very seasonal. So like right now we're getting into the end of May. So right now the forests and the waterfalls are just popping green right now. So that's going to be the focus for the next little while here. We still have pockets of old growth here, which are tremendously special places that, haven't been disturbed since the glaciers went through, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. They're also extremely difficult to photograph. But I really get something out of that. And these places, some of them, they just do not see visitors. There's not trails or anything. So you just kind of got to bushwalk your way in. So that's a lot of fun. Otherwise, mountains, obviously, you can't go wrong with mountains, right? So starting in July, I try to get up a little higher. I go up into the mountainscapes, and it's never ending. In British Columbia, you can take 10 lifetimes to really explore this province. There's a lot of the same locations being recycled here because they're quite accessible, but the inaccessible places here far outnumber what's accessible. So, starting to look at more helicopter trips and stuff like that to drop in. Yeah. Winters are becoming a real focus for me as well. The stuff out there that you can get in winter. I'm getting more comfortable in that terrain. I'm sort of learning the safety aspects, how to read the snow, and how to safely go off trail in those climates and stuff. So I'm starting to unlock that landscape as well. It's difficult, but it's a lot of fun as well. And there's some gems to be had out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just talking a little bit before we went live about your pano, epson pano image.
Oh yeah,
yeah, it's a stunning image, mate.
It's funny. Like while I was there taking a picture of that tree, like I would have never imagined in a million years that was going to be the Pano Award winner. But it was just something different. It just had these really great textures. It just caught my eye. It was a real long lens shot. It was. I submitted that photo because I figured it's so different from anything I'd ever seen before that it's either gonna, get tossed or it might do quite well. Who knows? You just never know.
Well, I think it did all right, mate. I think you were all right there.
Yeah. Yeah. You got in the top 100, so that's pretty good. Yeah. For people who don't know who are listening, Matt Jackisch this year won the Epson Pano Awards. So I suggest that you get up on the internet and have a look at the awards, and you can check out that image, which I'm probably sure we'll bring up, won't we, Paul, on YouTube? So
we'll put the links down below.
Yeah, and so you can actually appreciate that image. It's a beautiful image. It does remind me a lot of... Did you find any inspiration from other photographers from this image, or...?
I'm trying to think. I mean, the one shot that maybe stands out in my mind a little bit is the Mark Adams shot of this lone tree in the center, and there's sort of these mounds of snow that are obviously large boulders that are covered, and it just had this sort of symmetry and simplicity to it that might have been in the back of my head somewhere when I was shooting.
Okay. Maybe a bit of work by Alex Noriega.
Yeah, actually, Alex as well has some great snowy tree shots, and they were probably back in there somewhere, right? Just in the subconscious.
You're
taking so many photos. Sometimes it's hard to actually recollect what the inspirations were. But I think it's important to have that conversation with yourself, because some people actually, I find they don't really, there's a bit of a disconnect there between what created that shot. So yeah, that's a good question.
Because I look at that image, and it does remind me a lot of an inspiration from Alex Noriega's work with these, with this type of landscape. But there is a lot of your work in it. It's obviously you haven't gone and copied something that he's done. You can see it as yours. It's very distinctively yours. It's it's quieter. It's softer. The composition's very, very simple. And, I think it's a beautiful, beautiful image, mate. And I can see why they chose that. It's definitely a great shot. And people who don't know of you, I suggest they go out and have a look on the internet. You're pretty much everywhere now, aren't you? Facebook, Instagram.
That's really about it, actually.
You've got a website. Yeah, you've got your own website. Your website's very well done too. I'd suggest people go and have a look at your website.
Oh, thanks, man.
I admire a lot of your work. I mean, that I have for quite a while now. We've probably known each other for quite a bit now. And, I suggest people to go and check out all of your work, because it's very inspiring. You've got a very dramatic approach about capturing these landscapes in local Canada, but I think that your images come back a little bit quieter. They're not quite as loud as some of these other landscapes are out there. So I can really appreciate it for that.
Yeah, I'm really trying to strike the balance between this, power as well as subtlety. That I want the light to be real. So like the moments are definitely powerful, but I don't want to blast it in people's faces either. So try to walk the tightrope a little bit.
It's a big mistake that we make, isn't it? We try to be as loud as possible to get attention on social media, because that's where the basis of our communication is today, isn't it? So
that's where we find our connections really with. I mean, that's really what this is about.
once upon a time, your only way of, attracting attention was in a landscape photography magazine or in a big print on a wall somewhere that, someone could appreciate your work. So it's hard to attract that attention. And I think sticking to your style and being very distinctive about who you are and the landscapes that are around you, you've done a brilliant job of it. I know that you're not a loud person. You're quite a reserved person, and you don't sort of try and sell yourself too much.
Yeah,
as do a lot of other photographers do. So I really appreciate you.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, it's just I'm not really that comfortable doing that. I want to really focus on the creativity aspect and not so much on the waving my hands up and down. Hey, everybody, look over here. It's not really my style. I think a lot of creatives, introspective types are not really like that. I remember reading. I read an article from Guy Tal about the introverts in this genre. How they should really avoid playing the extroverts game. Like, just stick to your style. Stick to be true to yourself, and don't try to play their game. Just do you and focus on that and just be real, and you'll find your audience. And it was a great article. Yeah, I'd have to dig it up now, but it really resonated with me.
You'll be digging for a while, mate. Guy Tell's written a lot of stuff. Yeah.
He's written a lot of stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that is so true, actually. Because I must admit, I recently went out and took got some decent shots of the bluebells here, and I tried the same approach when I try and edit them to be subtle and real and all that. And it's so hard when you're in Photoshop not to get carried away, because you see so many pictures, don't you, on Instagram that are technically horrendous, but they're bright orange and green, and they've got hundreds of thousands of likes, and you just think, but you are true. I think your images are very true to you, and they're subtle, and they're obviously gaining traction. So, good job.
It is really easy to get carried away, even when you're not like comparing to other work. You just sort of, without realizing it, you just go a little too far with it, and it's just a little too punchy and contrasty, and it's hard to do that without referencing other work.
Yeah.
Like, I take a lot of breaks when I'm editing, just so I can recalibrate my eyeballs and get it.
It's important.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So, because you sort of you lose perspective, it becomes you don't see the color casts and the contrast and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely get locked into this sort of thing of got to churn out more content. You've got to kind of give yourself a bit of slack and give you time to adjust, really. Yeah.
I really hate having to, think about catering to an algorithm or a style of creativity that is more recognized than another. I really don't like that stuff. So I'm really trying to be true to my views, and I just want to keep my work both personal and original. So that's front of mind when I'm out there shooting. I try not to. Well, I certainly don't. When I'm out in the field, think about, this would make a great print, or this would make a great sponsored whatever. Or I don't want to think in terms of products. I'm just strictly out there being curious and engaging nature, basically, and trying to make sense of. Trying to make something look beautiful, really, and convey a scene, convey a story with one image.
Yeah.
So recently, last podcast we had Enrico on, and he was talking about when he edits his images, he chooses his images depending on how he feels at the time. I was just wondering how do you approach your editing, as in, do you have like a back catalogue of images that you sort of work through methodically, or do you just think I fancy editing a waterfall shot today, or?
Yeah, it's. I had a major backlog of images up until a few months ago because I had done a trip back in 2017. I just accumulated this massive images that I just didn't have time. And it's almost as if when you're sitting down and you're sort of starting to decide what you want to do, it almost decides for you. Like it's almost like the image chooses you. It's just like you move a couple sliders and you're like, oh wait, there's something here. I'm gonna keep going with it, and you sort of poke around a little more, and you're like, yeah, this could be good if I just exploit the light a little bit here and darken this spot, and suddenly you have a really great scene to sort of work with.
And isn't it good to go back some of those old images too? Because if you had hoed it and done it back then, you probably regret it now. Because, I mean, I look at your work. I've known you for probably a few years now, and I remember originally seeing your work, which was quite as beautiful as it was, very, very heavy, very contrasty. And we've had this conversation before recently that, your work has transitioned into something that's not as loud, very, very subtle and truer to the light that you captured. And I think do you think that probably over the recent last couple of years that you've gone through that experimental phase of trying everything out in post-processing, that you're now refining that experimental phase into a standard of what you understood is your photography?
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. That is happening. I'm very mindful about having a direction in the way I'm evolving as an artist. I'm getting away from things like that, those deep contrasty style of images. I'm getting away from magenta. I'm getting away from wide open, wide angle shots. And I'm exploring different avenues of this for sure. I used to also edit in a really dark room with a pretty bright screen. And so you just end up with dark images. So I backed away from that. I edit in a brighter room now, and I've darkened my monitor a little bit just to, give it a little more balance. So I'm trying to get away from my creativity or my art becoming a habit and always doing the same thing. Photography for me is a way of breaking habit. So I want it to have a direction. I want it to be in a state of constant sort of evolution where it is an experimental process, and I am trying things that I haven't tried before, taking risks, even putting things out there that may or may not, really connect with an audience, just to see, what do people think of this? I haven't seen it done before. I'm going to see if it connects or not. And it doesn't always. Sometimes it just flops, and that's fine. Like whatever.
As I say, how do you take the not that you have had many hits, but how do you take them hits? Do you take it very personal, or like the feedback you get from social media? Or
I mean, I've been very lucky, actually. I haven't really come across really many haters, which makes me think that I'm not really successful yet.
Oh, you haven't made it yet, mate.
We were talking about that recently, weren't we, guys? Yeah. When you start getting hate mail and comments, that's when you know you're getting somewhere. Yeah,
that's when you know you're stirring the shit. Yeah, definitely.
Actually, I certainly feel a greater sense of vulnerability with the writing that I share. I don't know, sometimes I really do a deep dive into the experience, and I share, how I was feeling and what it was like out there, and I sort of dissolve the identity a little bit, and it can really feel like it's coming out of left field, I think. And I know there's certainly people reading that who it absolutely will not connect with. So there's a degree of coming across as a bit of a I don't know, like you're just kind of out there. But to my surprise, it's really landed. It's really people. It really resonates with, and so that counts for a lot. I feel like I've really made some good connections that way. And it's really flattering actually that people like it's Instagram where you're just like flicking by. That the fact that people stop and read my little blurb, that's, I don't take that lightly. That's
good.
Quite an honor.
It is. That's when someone's actually taken their time to they're actually appreciating your art.
Yeah.
And they want to look at it rather than, okay, let's just scroll through Instagram and just put a like on everything just so I can bump up my algorithm and for when I post a photo. Unfortunately, that happens 95% of the time, I believe. So if when you do get people to actually take the time and you actually see that they've read what you've written, is like, wow, God. On Instagram.
Yeah, exactly.
Places, I know. Yeah, it's like the instant gratification, benchmark, really. It's, quick fix.
It's crazy. I think I read somewhere the other day that you, the average, you could basically get less than 3 seconds to grab someone's attention. The average person doesn't even look for 3 seconds, which is crazy, really.
Yeah.
It's a sad truth, isn't it?
Yeah, all that effort and work for 3 seconds of attention.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Put it as black and white as that is.
Yeah.
That was how long the first podcast I had lasted with Paul.
Yeah, it's because I was sick of you, mate.
Seriously, Matt, we got on there and about 15 minutes later he goes, well, it was great to have you on. And, that was the end of it. And I thought, you're kidding me. I said, that was like quick sex.
Well, it was all because Tom's camera wouldn't work that night. Wasn't it, Tom? So I was kind of put in a position where I was thinking, right, I'm going to have to do this. But it worked out right. We did a 2-parter. It worked well.
Yeah,
that was my bad.
Now they're stuck with me.
Guys, I've watched a few of your interviews now, and yeah, for sure. I wanted to know what I was getting myself into
before signing up. No, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, because I sent Matt a message and he answered me about 36 hours after. So I think he did his research,
watched every video.
Yeah.
I average about 36 to 40 hours to answer people. I have to think about what I'm going to say.
Right, guys, what I'm going to do is have a quick break and we'll be right back.
If you're watching this, then I assume you're someone who is passionate about both photography and the natural world. Over the last decade, I'm sure you've seen the incredible growth in photography. Everyone has a camera these days, and everyone wants a beautiful nature photo to share with the world. Unfortunately, the passion to capture that image often overrides thoughtfulness. Wildflower fields are being trampled and destroyed. Delicate, unknown locations are being widely advertised, bringing crowds of people, transforming wild places into urban spaces. Regulations, private property, and the well-being of wildlife are ignored in the pursuit of an image for Instagram. If such things weigh heavily on you, consider joining Nature First, the movement for responsible nature photography. This is a global initiative to help recover the role of nature photographers as caretakers and ambassadors of the natural world. There are no membership fees, no ads, no gimmicks, just an opportunity to be part of this global initiative of nature photographers dedicated to caring for the natural world. You can learn more at naturefirstphotography.org.
So we talked a little bit about your process, but what exactly are you shooting with these days? Are you happy to talk a little bit about gear, or?
We like gear chats.
Yeah, I'm like the opposite of a gear guy actually, but I'm shooting with a Nikon D810, And then I've got everything from, the 14 to 24 right up to the 80 to 400 lens. And yeah, that's served me extremely well for the last, I think I've had it for 5 or 6 years now. I came over from Canon. I had the 5D Mark II, and I was waiting for them to up their sensor game. Finally, I just bit the bullet. And actually, funny story. So, I get this camera. It's brand new, and then I join a Mark Adamus tour. The first tour I've ever done with Mark Adamus, and we're out there day one, and it's like my first interaction with Mark, and I know he's got the same camera, and I asked him, "Hey, Mark, what does this button do on this D810?" Thinking he'll have an answer for me, right? He what he says is, "The first thing you need to know about me is that I'm an artist, not a photographer, and I have no idea what that is."
That was the shutter button.
But the thing is, it was the perfect answer, because I used to think to be a good photographer, you need to know every function of your camera, every menu, every button. And here's Mark Adamus, a world-class, leading photographer, saying it doesn't matter. You don't need to know what that does. And that was actually, I forgave myself of having to know everything about my camera in that moment. It was the perfect answer. And I thought it was great. And
you're not going to tell us you shoot in auto mode, are you, mate?
Say again?
You're not going to tell us you shoot in auto.
No, I'm not going to tell you that. I understand the basics. I can get through the basics of photography.
That's all you need.
Well, before digital, mate, that's what it was. You had to understand the basics of a camera, and everything else was about focal distance, composition, and there wasn't much more about it. So I think if you apply those rules in the digital age, you're going to get by with a beautiful raw image, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you still have to get it right in the field. You definitely still have to, get the right shutter speed, focus, composition, and all that stuff. But all those little gizmos in the menus and all these little extra add-ons and stuff like that, back in the early days, I really thought you needed to have a real good understanding of all that stuff. And it was daunting, really. It's probably daunting for a lot of people looking to get into it, but you don't need to know that stuff. ISO, shutter speed, aperture, maybe white balance, whatever, and go be an artist. That's what it's about.
100%. I thought that one.
Yeah.
Sorry, mate, you go. You go, mate, it's fine.
What's that?
You go. So I didn't want to interrupt you.
It's okay, mate. You're not deaf. It's just Tom can't speak English. It's all right. Don't worry about it. No, mate, go for it. You'll be right. You might go, mate. Yeah, mate.
Yeah, no, I was just saying it was a great lesson that I wasn't expecting to receive that way. It was just, it's like, whatever. Who cares what that button does?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Like I said, I've recently bought a Sony, and everyone says to me, the menus are horrendous and blah, blah, blah. But I don't think I've been in the menus since the day after I got it, after I set it up.
No, you just need to set it up, and then you don't need to be back in them, to be honest, I don't think. No,
I've set all my keys, the short keys around the buttons that I need, and I don't even touch the white balance. I just leave it on auto all the time and go and be an artist. Like you said.
That's the beauty of capturing in RAW, isn't it?
Yeah,
totally. Yeah.
You've got those five rules you need to make sure, as you said, your sharpness, your depth of field, your composition, and your exposure, obviously, because if you stuff that up, nothing much you can do about that.
Yeah.
And go for it. Talk us through basically what you do when you're out on field. Okay, you set up your tripod, you put your camera on, you've got a composition in front of you. How do you take that image?
Well, I mean, There's two different states I'm in when I'm photographing. I'm either in kind of a trophy hunting state where I'm going after something I've already found from a previous visit, or maybe I want to improve on someone else's shot that I've seen there. That's an exception. What I'm usually doing is really exploring and in a more of a creative, explorative state. So the tripod usually comes out last. I'm usually like in all these different awkward positions, trying to figure out the best angle, how to capture the best, sort of direction of light, and how can I frame it up the best. And that can take hours. That can take days even. If I'm hunkered down in a spot for 3 days, if your mountain is your obvious subject, but you're trying to figure out a foreground or something to really, really lead into it well, that process is so exhausting, and it takes such a long time, and it takes so much patience. And, you can have altitude sickness and haven't slept well in a few days, and you're just totally out of it. But the more patience you apply to that process, the better outcome you will get. And so eventually, when you find that sort of perfect shot, that mathematically, geometrically perfect angle, that's when the tripod comes out, and, then you just kind of sit on a rock and you wait for the light. It's a long process for sure. And I try to build as much time into that as I can. And I try to capitalize on the time that I've allowed to be there as much as I can.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And rather than focus on getting like 3 or 4 nice shots, I try to get that one perfect shot. Otherwise I'm not sharing it.
Yeah. Otherwise you're rushing around trying to get 20 different compositions, and you're wasting your time at that point.
You're spreading yourself a little too thin, and you're not mentally committed to the objective of telling the story in one image. And that's kind of what I try to do. I don't really, try to bang off a shopping list. I just want to really find the best that I can get. Like I went to Assiniboine last summer, and, I'd been there before. Everyone's got a great shot of Assiniboine. I just wanted to try something a little different. And I eventually found this cave and crawled in and just sort of spent some time in there. And we didn't have great conditions, but I got a pretty good shot that I liked of it. But it took a while. Like I had to wait for these clouds to come in, which took hours and hours. And I don't even know if it happened on the first day. So we had to go all the way back the second day. It was a bit of a hike. But once you find that thing that works, stick with it and wait for the conditions that are conducive to making it great.
Yeah, definitely. You talked about getting your shot and waiting for the light. Do you tend to look for a composition first, or do you try and be what's the word, like spontaneous? Do you look for a composition, or do you react to the light? Does that happen first sometimes, or does it really just depend?
It really depends on what the light's doing. If the light happens to be going off right when I arrive at a great place, then it's full on panic. I mean, you know you're getting rewarded before you're ready.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my strategy tends to be, get the basic shot first, just get a typical, maybe no foreground, or just get something in your camera. So at least you have some great light. And then if the light continues to deliver, then you can try being a little more experimental. You can get a little bit more fancy. You can try maybe putting more layers into your shot. So I get a little bit more risky as the time proceeds, and maybe that pays off, and maybe my first shot is the best shot of the day.
Yeah.
But so I start simple, and then I progressively try to make it a little bit more complicated. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, definitely. Such a nice feeling, isn't it, when you turn up and it is panic mode, but you get a shot you think in the back of your mind, you think, yeah, that could be good. And then it's just like, oh, thank God.
Yeah. I remember I was at this viewpoint in Iceland, and it was a cloudy day. It was gray. It was very uninteresting. So I was just sort of shooting like long lens into these mountains. And then without warning, the sky just exploded. And I'm like, holy cow, like everywhere. It was just like this vibrant red and pink and all these textures. And I just panicked and I just started floundering and flailing and grabbing like different lenses and stuff like that. like I lost track of all time. I think I might have lost consciousness. I just, I don't know.
Passed out with the shock.
It was just like, it was full on panic mode, but I ended up getting a good shot of it that I liked. It was great.
That's good. I work horrible under those conditions. When I arrive at a location and I get the light then and there, it's like that adrenaline actually cuts off my creative part to my brain. You know, that part where you start searching for a composition, you start thinking about the whole process about, okay, what's this going to look like in post-production afterwards? What am I trying to achieve here? All that for me goes out the window. When I arrive on a location, I've got that light there and then.
Yeah.
And, I'm like you said, you arrive on a location, you walk around with the camera for a while, the tripod is the last thing that comes out.
Yeah.
Because you've got that planning. So it's good that you can perform in those situations. I'm horrible like that. I really am.
I typically find that I get my shot, my composition dialed about 10 minutes after the peak of the light. So you still have some light, but you've missed the best of it when you find your calm. And come on. You guys have the same way, or I don't know. I rarely ever get the perfect comp with the perfect light. It's you got to do it ahead of time.
Yeah, I generally find it right after it for sure. Yeah. Gutting.
Yeah. You just think, oh, it's fine. I'll just come back another day because now I know. And then that day, that light and that situation is never there when you're there ever again.
No. And then it turns into a trophy hunt, and then you're just sort of chasing the same shot. And while it sometimes reaps reward, it's pretty rare, and it's kind of annoying. I find you're living out something preconceived, which is not nearly as much fun.
Yeah.
No. So when do you think you've got a world beater? When do you think? Like, obviously, like I know when I take a shot, I think sometimes, I think it could be good. But do you feel like you actually know there and then whether you've got?
It's about 50-50. Like sometimes I'm like right away, I'm like, boom, I got it, like nailed it. And other times, I'll be back in my tent or wherever reviewing the shots, and maybe like what I do a lot of is zooming in and cropping in different ways and seeing like, oh, what if I sort of narrow this one or do a 16:9, and then there's a shot, like it works. And that was not obvious before. Sometimes, you just have to crop in a little bit or just look at it closer. And that process, actually, I spend quite a long time doing as well. I mean, chances are you're going to have a lot of downtime when you're out, like, when I'm having and stuff, there's a lot of downtime. So I'm spending a lot of time reviewing the images and sort of moving the screen around and just seeing if there's a picture within the picture that I can really hone in on. And so a lot of the time I find one that way.
That's the advantage of the big sensors these days is it does give you more, the ability to do that's even more evident, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So you're still using the D810 now, or?
Still using it, yeah. Still very happy with it. It's taken quite a beating. It's gotten soaking wet. I've dropped it, and it still works perfectly fine. So, I don't need to have the latest and greatest. I would like to print large one day, hopefully soon, but so maybe some more megapixels. But for now, I'm pretty happy with what I have.
Mate, that camera's got the same as the Pentax K1, I think, doesn't it, Tom? That's the 36 megapixel CMOS sensor?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
The Sony sensor, exactly the same sensor. Mate, 36 megapixels, you can go enormous. You'd be surprised.
Yeah, I've gone
a lot of people think, I need these pixels, I need these massive amount of pixels, I need this 60 megapixel Sony camera because I want to print enormous. You don't need to, unless someone's actually looking 5 centimeters away from a canvas that you've blown up.
Yeah.
Let's face it. An image gets appreciated from a meter or 5 meter distance.
Totally.
These pixels you're never going to see. People talk about that all the time, and I can't understand why. When you print, I mean, I've got beautiful 60 by 90 prints that I've used, from a 10 megapixel camera.
Wow. Yeah.
And they're perfect. So.
Yeah. You don't even need to do that now with this new thing in Camera Raw, do you? Really, you can boost your megapixels anyway by doing that.
Yeah, that's true. There's a new software out for that. I still haven't explored that.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I tried it a couple of weeks ago, didn't I, Paul? And I was quite surprised at the results. Doesn't affect, well, from what I could see anyway, it doesn't seem to affect IQ in any way. So it's good, mate, that you've got a camera that you're comfortable with. You've had it for a few years now, and you can feel like technology's hit a point where, is it going to change that much your photography? I mean, everyone's hurrying into mirrorless so much at the moment. Is it worth it?
Yeah, I'm not convinced myself.
No.
More batteries, and you got to worry about the weather sealing a little more. My camera's, it's taking a licking and it keeps on ticking, and I respect that. I keep with it.
Yep,
for sure.
I've never heard a bad person say anything about the D810.
No.
Not one person.
They had a few issues with the 800, didn't they, originally?
Yeah.
I think the shutter had quite a few issues in the beginning, but yeah, the D810 is a beautiful camera. A lot of people are still saying now the D810 is better than their new mirrorless stuff. So,
brilliant.
Yeah. Anyway, we like to talk about gear, sorry, mate, but there's always an audience out there that says, there might be an 18-year-old kid out there saying, I want to shoot like Matt Jackisch. What gear does he use? So it's good to hear.
There it is. Yeah, I don't think I've had that conversation before. So there it is.
You just need to tell them your settings now, and they'll be all set.
Yeah, that's right. Auto settings. Auto JPEG.
Yeah.
HDR the whole way.
One thing I did want to just quick over Brushly. Just wanted a little conversation about filters.
Filters.
Yeah, do you use filters? Are you a filter man, or do you exposure blend, or?
Starting with filters, I'm getting away from filters. I've gotten away from filters. I used to polarize most of my shots.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've found is it really sort of killed a sense of depth in your image.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've totally gotten away from them. I try not to use them at all. And not only that, but my wide angle polarizer doesn't thread properly anymore. So if I know I'm going to use it, I have to put it on the night before, because it takes about 10 minutes to thread.
And then you're stuck with it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're kind of stuck with it. So I've really gotten away from filters. I don't think I've done a cloud streaking kind of shot for a very long time.
Mm.
I prefer just natural. I do exposure blends when it's required. I try to get it all in one shot, and actually most of my shots are done in one. But the odd time you need to sort of restore some detail in some of the highlights or shadows. So I do that when I need to do it.
It's interesting you talking about polarizing filters, because I've advocated my work with polarizing for years now, and I've always told everybody 90% of the time your polarizer should be on, and I've actually found the same recently too. With the polarizers, it tends to cut through that atmosphere too, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It kind of does.
Sometimes that glare, I'm actually find I have to bring back into an image later on, because that atmosphere that creates a depth and creates a certain situation the way it is. Sometimes the polarizers just cut through the whole lot and saturate and give everything just a huge boost of contrast.
Absolutely. Which actually looks great. It looks great when you look at the back of the camera, when you look at it in that way. You think you're getting an improvement, but when you actually open the raw file on your computer that sense of depth is kind of gone, and you really can't bring it back. So,
yeah, definitely. I mean, they're great. Obviously, if you need them for, you're taking a picture of a waterfall and you want to cut out, certain details in a waterfall or in a lake or whatever for reflections. But
totally, yeah.
I think
we don't like blue skies anyway, so we don't care about saturating blue skies, do we? We like storms.
I think it's just getting out of the habit of just putting them on full all the time. I think that's part of the problem, is you tend to put them on and you put it on full polarization. Whereas if you just tweak it a little bit, you can cut out some of the reflections and still retain some of that, can't you, really?
Yeah, I went through that phase as well, full polarized. But now I'm like, not even using it. Even in some situations, water looks better without a polarizer, I find. You do get, you might get a little bit of hot spots. You might have to exposure blend a little bit, but I almost like that sense of texture that you regain without it.
Yeah.
My friend up here in Vancouver, Tristan Todd, I'm not sure if you follow him.
Yeah, Tristan.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's not a polarizer guy, and he's got great green scenes. And I'm like, dude, this is fantastic. Like, what are you doing that I'm not? And he's not using a polarizer. So that was one of the reasons why I backed away from it. And I'm really liking it well. I got probably my favorite shot is from a waterfall in Indonesia, which I over polarized, and I'm mad about that because I'm never going back there. And I can't restore that sheen that the leaves had.
Yeah.
Still turned out good, but I wish I hadn't polarized it, or at least maybe taken one of each shot, one polarized.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Adam Gibbs's recent stuff, he does make a point about doing exactly what you just said about taking a shot with and without. Yeah. And Adam's really made me think about whether I use a polarizer or not. And I am using it less as well.
His work is so good and so subtle and so great. His style is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. You never shot with Adam, because obviously
I have shot with Adam.
You have, yeah. Yeah.
I've shot. It's been a few years now, but him and I used to shoot together quite a bit actually, and we've shot in the mountains here a few times. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, he's done very well with ever since that massive title he won on International Landscape, and now his vlogs are really good. He's really done well building himself up. I mean, good for him.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So obviously you predominantly edit in Photoshop, or and use Lightroom as cataloging, or do you?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I do.
Yeah.
I try to keep it simple. I haven't really gone into these new softwares. No, I'm not into it. It takes me long enough to learn something new and a new piece of software. I really am not a very patient person when it comes to that stuff. So having to learn something all over again is such a daunting task for me. I'm just not into it. I'm happy with what I've got so far with Photoshop and what I've learned. And I find I often need to relearn, because I go sometimes a few months without processing anything, and then you kind of lose that artistic edge a little bit. So I almost have, I have a lot of videos from like Enrico Fassetti and Alex Noriega. I find myself rewatching them sometimes just to remind myself of what options I have, and stuff that I hadn't used in a long time. And they have great reference materials for that kind of thing. Just sort of adding to your toolbox, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, using their techniques to apply to your style. It's
totally. Yeah.
Yeah, something we've talked about quite a bit, eh?
Yeah. You can use someone else's technique and still maintain your own style, for sure.
Yeah, that's how we all learn, isn't it? Really, you take knowledge from everywhere and you put it into whichever direction you want to go.
Yeah, for sure.
Or you try and play the guitar like Jimi Hendrix, and that's just never going to happen.
Yeah, that doesn't really back up my point.
Yeah. So go, Tom. Go for it, mate. Sorry.
I was just going to talk a little bit about prints and workshops, and do you do workshops?
I have done one workshop, and it was for Max Drive, actually, in Greenland. That was quite an adventure. That was really jumping into the deep end of workshops for sure. I have some more in the works, but nothing officially announced yet. So I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I am planning on leading more. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So you obviously like moving forward, where do you see yourself? Do you see yourself doing more work photography as like a, I don't want to say work, but more of a business type of situation?
I'm never really going to focus on turning it into a successful business. For me, it's actually I'm actually compartmentalizing my art from the money-making aspect of my life. I want to keep it both separate. That said, I will explore offering workshops. I'd love to do a workshop here in BC of the old growth forests. There's a lot of little pockets of really special forests here that I think would be fun to take people to while they're still here, because they are disappearing.
Fast.
Building a tour like that. The logistics of getting people into the mountains here are quite difficult because of the level of fitness required. But I may look at maybe, helicopter options or something like that. So yeah, I'm sort of turning that stuff over in my mind about how I'm going to, get going with that. It's really hard to envision at this time with the way, travel is restricted. But, when we're back to a sense of normalcy, then I'm really going to start pursuing that.
Excellent.
Yeah. And I am looking at, maybe getting into the print world as well. I'm gonna engage a couple galleries here and see if they're interested. I'm not really interested in selling on my own, but maybe going down that road as well. And I've actually considered vlogging.
Ideal.
Yeah, just like everybody else, right?
Join the club.
Yeah. I'm looking at it. It's when I really think about what it takes to make a vlog, it's a lot of work, and you're carrying 2 or 3 more cameras, and your half your mind is now diverted from making the photography to making the vlog.
It's very difficult.
Yeah, so I like the idea of it. I don't know if I'm really going to actually go through with it yet. I might try a few experimental ones and then see where it goes. But
100%.
It's quite a task for me to really pull the trigger on that.
Yeah. See how annoyed you get by watching yourself walk back and forward past the camera 3 times to get the shot.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna love it.
But yeah, I suppose you can, kind of half press the trigger, really, can't you? You could go out and vlog for a whole year and not upload it, and just sort of really build up, like not only build up basic content, but you can sort of hone your skills in silence, if you know what I mean, secretly.
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of my style.
So where do you see yourself going in the future? Is there any aspirations, any places you want? I know we can't, it's hard to sort of talk about that now, but is there anything you want to shoot, want to do?
I mean, I've got a bulletin board right up here with all the locations, even just locally, that I still want to get to. And I filled up 2.5 pages of stuff. But internationally, Pakistan is very high on my list. I want to get there to the range, to K2. I want to get back to Peru. Those 2 are highest on my list. Back to Patagonia. I'd like to do some of the remote hikes in that area. What else? Maybe back to Iceland. Iceland, obviously a very popular location, but there are areas in Iceland that you can go and still be alone. Last time I was there, I explored an area called Hornstrandir, which is in the very northwest tip of Iceland, in the West Fjords. you can basically only get there by boat. And so, I was dropped off and backpacked through that area alone for 5 days. And it was just absolutely amazing. I hardly saw a single other person. So I'd like to have that experience again. I didn't get good conditions, so I'd like to go back and maybe, and see what happens if I get better light or something. And the sea cliffs out there are just astounding.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
otherwise, here in Canada, there's tons to see and tons on my list, just locally here.
Yeah, well, you certainly live in a good place, definitely.
I am very lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I wish you all the best for that, mate. It's been great to have you on. Is anything else, Paul or Matt, you want to talk about?
No,
just got one. Yep, go Paul. Sorry, Matt.
We'll just say that we'll pop all the links to everything we can down below, and we'll include them in the show notes to the audio podcast as well as the YouTube video as well.
Sure. How much time do we have? I wanted to show you guys something.
We have
go for it.
7 minutes. Go ahead.
Well, I can probably do that. Yeah, I wanted to give you guys a glimpse into the world of landscape photography in Canada. So this is my camping pillow. Beautiful. That right there is a bear tooth mark.
No.
So,
we can't.
Yeah, it went. And there's another one right there.
Nice. No way.
Yeah. So there's a bit of.
Oh my God. Tell us the story.
Sorry?
Tell us the story.
I was on a canoe trip with my dad and my brother in the north of BC here. And it was a week-long trip. On day 3, we were getting rained on. We arrived at our campsite, pouring rain. So we were drying out in this little cook shelter. I had my sleeping gear in a dry bag, and I put that by one of the tent pads. So while we were in the cook shelter, this black bear shows up, and he starts gnawing on the dry bag. Like, oh golly. And it's like 20 feet away. And so we're trying to scare it away. We're like banging on the shelter and like clapping and waving and screaming. And the thing just does not care at all. It's just not. So full disclosure, what happened next, me, my dad, and my brother all remember differently. So I'm going to give you my version of it. So what happened next is I had a flashback. I flashed back to a book that I read called Wolf Totem. And it's a true story that takes place in Mongolia. And in the story, the character is riding a horse and gets surrounded by wolves. And he's basically done for. But what he remembers and what he does is he knows that wild animals don't like the sound of metal on metal. So what he does is he takes the stirrups from his horse and he charges them and bangs them together. And that was enough to scare the wolves apart and get through them and get away from them. And as I'm reading that book, I'm like, I'm going to need that one day. I'm going to need that bit of information, that metal on metal, wild animals does not mix. So here we are in this cook shelter with this bear gnawing on my sleeping gear. And I'm like, metal on metal, metal on metal. So I grabbed my pot and my lid, and without really consulting my dad and my brother, I just ran up to the bear, banging my pot and my lid, and just hoping that it would work. And I think my dad and my brother saw what I was doing, and so they ran up behind me to back me up. And so anyway, the bear left, dropped my bag and left.
You've got balls, mate.
I didn't really think about it too much at the time, but in hindsight, I think I bluff charged that bear. Now, when I talked, me and my dad and my brother, we didn't really debrief about it until actually years later. And I said, hey, what happened there? Like, how did I tried to convey what I remembered happening, and they said, no, that never happened. So, they just thought the bear left on its own accord.
They took the story away from you.
I know. I wanted them to validate. I don't know if you guys can see this. This is my sleeping mattress. I don't know if you can see
yeah.
Oh, yeah. I see
all the marks in it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he punctured the crap out of that mattress. That's a $400 mattress.
Oh no!
I needed 4 more days out of it. I
thought you were going to say that you woke up in the morning, opened up your tent, and there was a bear right in front of you. So you just grabbed your pillow and stuck it in his mouth.
Yeah, it's not nearly as good as that.
What a story! That's Canada, huh?
Yeah, that's Canada. Yeah. Actually, what's funny is about half an hour later, we saw a different bear in the same campsite. It was a brown bear. But that one was more scared of us. As soon as he saw us, they ran away. But yeah, I didn't sleep much that night.
No, I'm sure. No, you wouldn't. No.
I'm not sure. I'm not really sure we could top that. How are we going to top that? Bear story.
I had a shark swim underneath me.
Wow. Well, there you go.
Yeah, but he just didn't see me, obviously. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. That was the end of that. That's my claim to fame. I think everyone in Australia's had a shark swim underneath if they went for a swim.
Oh, yeah. Definitely, yeah.
Mate, it was beautiful to have you on. Great to have this chat with you. It was great to know a little bit more about, you as a person in general and what makes you tick. And
thanks for giving me the time and shedding a little spotlight on me. That's really kind of you.
No worries, mate. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a blast talking to you, and that bear story's just topped it off.
Yeah, I hope I told it well. I haven't told that story in a while.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, mate.
Cheers, buddy.
Thanks, buddy.
Cheers.
Take care, buddy.
Bye-bye.